guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. We have another book review today. Fortunately, one of the silver linings of this whole quarantine thing is that I've been cranking out a lot of reading. So I have not even written about this one in my book journal just yet, but I have it here just to kind of go through the questions that it asks. So this is the book Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. And for my rating on this book, I think I am going to give it a 5 out of 5. Part of me wanted to be harsh, not harsh, but and give it a 4.5 out of 5, only because I don't know if I loved the ending. And it should be noted that I made a challenge with myself to try to read this in 3 days, and I did, but that also required me technically going into the 4th day by staying up till 1:30 a.m. to finish it. And I think I just had so much invested. I sat there and read the last 150 pages basically in one sitting, and they were great. Don't get me wrong, I was happy to do it. I would have, given up and just said, okay, whatever, I'll read tomorrow if it wasn't good. It was very good. I just think I don't know, maybe I had really high expectations and really high pressure on the ending. I did like the ending. I did really love this book. I do think ultimately I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, but that was just a little tidbit of information. Plot notes. Ooh, okay. I may be pronouncing the main character's name wrong. I don't know. But this is the story about a girl named Amira, I think is how you pronounce her name. She's about 25 years old and she lives in Philadelphia. And in the very first chapter, so right out the gate, so this is not really a spoiler, but yeah, it's also on the description of the book. You find out that she is a babysitter. She's not quite a nanny, but there's this family that she babysits for all the time. And she's really close with the little girl who she babysits. And in the very first chapter, Amira is out with her friends, and she's had a couple drinks. She's out doing what 25-year-olds do. She's dressed in a cute, not safe for work dress and all of that. And the mother of this child who she babysits for calls her and sounds kind of frazzled, and the way I interpreted it was actually that there was maybe some domestic violence or something happening at the house, but that the cops were going to be on the way. Maybe I'm just a freak, because what ended up happening was the family had gotten egged and they called the cops. Anyway, that was maybe more obvious than than I picked up on, but I just knew something weird had gone on and that they called the cops and that they just didn't want their soon-to-be 3, I think she was soon-to-be 3-year-old daughter to see the cops. So they were just can you pick her up for an hour or two? Sorry, it's late, blah, 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 whatever. So then Amira takes the little girl, and it's around 10:45, 11 p.m. and she takes her to this fancy grocery store down the street from this family. And while she's there, one of her best friends left the party with her to go pick up the girl. And so the two girls are there with the little girl. I think her name is Briar. That's how it's spelled, Briar Patch. It reminds me of Splash Mountain from Disney. But it's B-R-I-A-R. But then sometimes they refer to her just as B-R-I, which looks like Brie, but then is it Bri? It's probably Bri. So they're there with the little girl Briar, and they're dancing with her and da-da-da-da-da. And it is worth noting that the main character, Amira, is Black. You find that out basically in this scene unfolding. Her friend is also Black. And then this little girl, Briar, and the family is white. And so they're in this grocery store and they're dancing, whatever. And this woman passes the aisle and kind of smiles at them and whatever, kind of acts like she thinks it's cute. And then the friend leaves to go hook up with a guy. And then maybe 5-10 minutes later, this security guard comes around the corner and is basically acting like a full-on cop and is racially profiling Amira and is questioning her about what she's doing and why she has this white child, and being so inappropriate and breaking the law and just all these different things. And so this goes on, and then Amira basically is let me call her dad if you don't believe me, whatever. She stands up for herself, and I really do like her character. I couldn't necessarily, well, probably for a variety of reasons, a multitude of reasons, I couldn't super relate to her character. And I'm not just talking about because she's Black, and the different struggles that she's had to face. Like, yeah, that too. But in general, she's just kind of like a cooler, more self-confident, more like, I don't know. I liked her, but it's like who I wish I could be. So she calls the little girl's dad and she's like, hey, they're trying to, they're kind of harassing me. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And he comes and he picks her up, blah, blah, blah. He picks up the girl and everything's fine. And then there's this guy that follows Amira out of the store and is like, hey, are you okay? Da, 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 da. And he's like, I caught that whole thing on my camera actually, because like, you should totally sue them. Like, that was crazy. And she's very like, not into it. And he's just like, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, that was really not cool. And he says, why don't you just let me email it to you? Do with it what you will, in case you change your mind. So she's like, fine. So then they part ways and like, that's that. What you do end up finding out, I think in like the very next chapter, is that the dad of the little girl, Briar, is like a news anchor for the city. And the reason his house got egged was because he said something on air, like on live TV, that could kind of be perceived as like racist. I forget the exact story, but it was something about like, I think it was a story about how these different high schoolers were asking each other to prom. And one of them was like, it showed one story and then maybe like another story. And I think they were like white kids. And then there was a black kid that asked a girl to prom. And the dad, the character of this, what is his name? I don't even remember his name. It doesn't matter. But he said something on air of like, I hope this last one asked for her father's permission or like something. So it's like, he didn't flat out say something racist, but it definitely came across in like, it just wasn't good. And so that night his house got egged and like da 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 da. Okay, so cut to, the story is about Amira, the girl, the woman who she nannies for or babysits for. So the woman's name is Alex. And then that guy who filmed her on the night of that event ends up becoming a main character as well. And his name is Kelly. And it's this really interesting story about Amira, who is this like young mid-20s girl who's just like trying to figure everything out. And I could super relate to her in that sense. Actually, I know I said I like wasn't like her, but I could relate to that scenario. I'm 30 now. I'm almost 31, but I'm still hanging on to 30. And I'm in my career now, but like I definitely went through it in my 20s of just like not knowing what I really wanted and what I was doing. And like your 20s are a really fun time, but they're a really confusing time, and like she doesn't have a lot of money and like she has just all these different things and she's not really thrilled that she's like a babysitter, and she also does transcript typing, but she's like about to run out of health insurance when she turns 26, and it's like, all these things. So it's kind of following her life in that sense and just like from the perspective of her. But if it wasn't obvious by now, a major theme that plays out in this is race and like discrete prejudices. Is that the plural of prejudice? I think the plural of prejudice is actually just prejudice. Now I just sound ignorant. What's the plural of ignorant? But like, just about the subtle racism that still happens. And there were so many parts. Oh, and it might be worth noting that the author is a Black woman. Here's her picture, Kylie Reed, and this is her debut novel. And so I liked that. I think it was really cool just to have that authentic perspective. And essentially, like, let's see, I don't want to spoil things, but I mean, I read something after finishing this book. I looked up some kind of like book club type questions, and I read something that made a point that I really, really liked and thought was valid and very interesting, was that in a lot of ways, this is kind of about like the whole white savior complex, which as a white person myself, granted, if we really want to get into it, I'm technically half Hispanic. That is a whole other conversation, because I've actually been really, really confused by that whole thing my whole life, because like I look white but I'm technically Hispanic, and like on paperwork you have to say if you're white parentheses non-Hispanic, and it's always been very confusing to me because I'm half and half. Anyway, that's really irrelevant. But as a primarily white and looks white person, I just thought it was so, what's the right word? Like, I mean, it was interesting, but I even want to think of like a better word than that. It was really like profound and really made me just be like, wow, like even about some of like my own ingrained, I don't want to call them biases, but like back to that white privilege thing, like, not white privilege, white savior. Like, it's just so interesting. It's just, what I mean when I say like back to my own whatever, like, sure, I like to sit here and think that I'm not racist at all, and I'm not, and I don't think I am, but like, you don't even realize how many things in society are ingrained in all of us, and how many ways there are like these subtle like racist moments and these subtle like profiling thing. I don't know. I hope I'm not offending, and I hope I'm just trying to be frank and be like real. And like, that was one thing that I really loved about this. Not only was it just interesting to read, it was like quick, easy, light, like quick chapters, which like we all know I love me a short chapter because that just helps me like pound through it. So I liked all of that, but it also just like really gets your wheels turning. And I think it was an important read. I think this is like borderline should be required reading for everyone, like high schoolers almost, although it has like inappropriate themes, but whatever. I just think it really gave me a different perspective to things. It gave me a different insight. It gave me I want to say it gave me a whole different appreciation for people of color, specifically Black people. But the thing is, it's like, I already do have an appreciation. Like, I really try to, I think a lot about makeup, for example, because I love beauty products. I think a lot about the fact that like now, yes, it's a lot more common and expected, rightfully so, for makeup companies to come out with a shade range that's inclusive. But it's really made me think about how like my whole life, like a shade range could totally suck, like a shade range of foundation. And if you don't get makeup, you're going to totally tune out at this part. But it could have like 3 shades, 4 shades. That's a dumb shade range. Like, there's way more than 4 shades of skin tone out there. But there's pretty much a 99% chance that no matter what, like, I've always been able to match. Whether that shade range had 50 shades or 4 shades, like, there's gonna be a shade for me. And that's just like a privilege that like I've never even really thought about until recently. You know what I mean? So this book definitely did that for me. It made me just think of different scenarios where I'm like, wow. And so, I don't know. I also think it was kind of cool that it was written. And again, in my opinion, I hope I'm not like being offensive. I don't think I am. I think it was only like right, and like I'm glad that it was a Black author, because I think she has like the platform to stand on to say all these different things. Not to say that like every Black person is the same or what have you, but you know what I mean? I just think it was that much more important and like had more weight to it coming from a Black woman. I liked the way it was written. Like, it was, I think it took place in 2015. The book came out in 2019, but it takes place in 2015, which is still pretty modern times. And like, I just like the way they talk about like Instagram and like different slang phrases they say and different like, oh, and another thing is like, I like audibly laughed out loud during this book a lot. I actually did not, oh, did I have any quotes? Maybe I did. Did I write any quotes down in this book? Because quotes is always a part that I like, Okay, here's a quote, and this was an example of like that whole ingrained racism and like that white savior, like, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but okay, here was a quote that I put in the book. When white people compliment her, parentheses, she's so professional, she's always on time. It doesn't always feel good because sometimes people are going to be surprised by the fact that she showed up rather than the fact that she had something to say when she did. I don't know, that was just powerful to me. Like it shouldn't be that way. And it was almost like the two characters, Kelly, who, spoiler alert, I mean, it's not that big of a spoiler, she ends up dating that guy, Kelly, the guy who filmed her the night of the incident at the store. Kelly and Alex are these two big like characters, and like what you kind of ultimately see is that both of them are white and have their narratives and their, I don't know, through both of those characters, you get all these different like, I guess, back to that whole like white savior thing. And that's not, I'm not phrasing it entirely right, but okay, let's see. Oh my gosh, okay, this quote is like totally random and unrelated to what I was just saying, but I really liked this part. I think this was towards the beginning still. So this is when she's still just kind of like talking to the guy, Kelly, and like they meet up at a bar and stuff. And he says, blah, blah, blah. He's talking about like something that he said to her the night they met. And he's like, oh, I did say that. And then he says, he asks her quite honestly, earmuffs, children, am I an asshole? And she goes, you? Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't know from experience, but like just statistically speaking, 100%. But it's chill. I died at that because like there's that whole notion that like all men are assholes and all women are crazy, which like I don't not believe. But I just thought that was so funny. Like she's like, oh yeah, for sure you're an asshole. She's like, I don't know that. You've never been an asshole to me, but statistically speaking, like yes you are. I thought that was gold. Oh no, and then that's back to my last book. So I didn't write down a lot of quotes, but it was very entertaining. It was such a quick read, and I thought it had a lot of important themes. So this, per usual, was kind of one of my all over the place book reviews, but I would love to know what you thought. I would also be really curious to know, I felt like I've never read a type of novel like this. Like I don't even quite know how to categorize it. It wasn't drama, it wasn't comedy, it wasn't thriller, it wasn't, I don't know. I don't know how to categorize this. It was just like a modern, important, entertaining story with like important themes that make you think. And okay, here, I'll read you this. I will leave you with this. Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I did my last book review on. She's the author of Daisy Jones and the Six and Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Loved both of those books. Here's what she said, because it has like the praise and stuff on the back. A startling, razor sharp debut. It's both wildly fun and breathtakingly wise, deftly and confidently confronting issues of race, class, and privilege. I have to admit, I'm in awe. Okay, so per usual, because Taylor Jenkins Reid is a queen and an amazing author, she just summed it up. She just summed it up. Like, it's fun and funny, but it's also really wise. It's like this low key, like, you don't even really realize how wise it is and how much you're like, wow. So I think it was great. I highly recommend it. I just started Something in the Water by Catherine Stedman, which I think is on Reese's Book Club as well, which so is this one, hence why I said as well. So leave me a comment if you want. I sliced my finger open today on a can, so things are going well here for me. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.